Okay, so why are we still completely obsessed with a love story that's over 200 years old? I mean, really think about it. Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, it's so much more than just a classic romance. It's this like razor sharp commentary on society, on money, and on the snap judgments that can totally define our lives. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's figure out why this story still hits so close to home, even today.
I mean, come on, this has to be one of the most famous opening lines ever, right? And it's doing so much work here. It's not just starting a story. With this one super witty and, yeah, deeply ironic sentence, Austen is basically setting the entire table. She's telling us, hey, this story, it's about love, sure, but it is absolutely about money. It's this brilliant, kind of sneaky critique of a world where, for a woman, marriage wasn't just a choice. It was her entire financial plan. All right, let's cover the basics real quick. So you've got Jane Austen, 1813. It's called A Comedy of Manners, which is really just a fancy way of saying it roasts the ridiculous social rules of the rich. The big themes? Well, they're right there in the title: love, marriage, class, and of course, Pride and Prejudice. But here's the kicker. The thing that shows you just how much this book has stuck around: scientists actually named a pheromone in male mice, the one that attracts females, Darcin, after Mr. Darcy. I mean, if that doesn't scream cultural impact, I honestly don't know what does.
Okay, so Pride, Prejudice, and the plot itself. Let's look at the core conflict, because the whole story really just spins around one epic misunderstanding. So, picture this. It all kicks off at a local party. We meet our main character, Elizabeth Bennet, who's super witty and independent. And then he walks in, Mr. Darcy. He's ridiculously rich and, from the looks of it, unbelievably arrogant. He basically disses Elizabeth with an earshot and boom, that's it. The battle lines are drawn right there. His pride smacks right into her, and her prejudice is instantly locked and loaded. And, getting from that awful first impression to actually understanding each other, it's a bumpy ride, to say the least. First, she absolutely torches him when he proposes the first time. It's epic. But then, things start to shift. Darcy writes her a letter that blows the lid off the lies told by his rival, this guy Wickham. And just as Elizabeth is starting to think, maybe I got this wrong, a huge family crisis explodes. Her little sister Lydia runs off with that same scoundrel, Wickham, which is a reputation-destroying disaster back then. And guess who secretly swoops in to save the day and the family's honor? Yep, Mr. Darcy. His actions finally speak way louder than his pride ever did. Now, the plot's one thing, but how this story gets told is a whole other ballgame, especially when you compare the book to the movies. See, in the book, Austen basically gives us a backstage pass into everyone's brain, especially Elizabeth's. We hear every single thought, every little judgment. A filmmaker, though, they can't do that. They've got this massive challenge. How do you take all that stuff that's happening inside a character's head and put it on screen for us to see? How do you show us what they're thinking instead of just telling us? And you can really see the different toolkits they're using here. The novel, it's all about that narrator giving us the inside scoop. The 2005 film, on the other hand, has to rely on, well, everything else. The actor's performance, body language, costumes, the way a scene is shot. The book has tons of witty dialogue, but in the movie, a lot of that gets cut down. So a single look between two characters has to say what a whole page of the book might explain. Oh, and there's this one perfect example in the 2005 movie. You know the scene where Darcy helps Elizabeth into her carriage, and just for a second, their hands touch. He walks away, and the camera just zooms in on his hand as he flexes it, like he's been electrocuted. There's no words, nothing. But that single shot, that tiny little gesture, it tells you everything you need to know about the war going on inside him. It's just brilliant filmmaking. So, to really get why everyone is so stressed out in this story, you have to understand the world they're living in. It wasn't all just pretty dresses and fancy parties. This was a society with super strict rules, and the stakes were incredibly high. One wrong step, especially if you were a woman, could mean complete and utter ruin. And a huge piece of that puzzle is this legal thing called the entailment. Basically, the Bennet's family home couldn't be inherited by any of the 5 daughters. Why? Because there were no sons. So the moment Mr. Bennet dies, the entire estate automatically goes to the next male in line, who happens to be the totally absurd Mr. Collins. This means the 5 Bennet girls and their mother would be kicked out on the street. It's the ticking time bomb underneath the entire story. So with that hanging over your head, what was a woman's playbook for survival? Forget a career, forget independence. It all came down to one thing: marrying well. And to do that, you had to have a spotless reputation. A good marriage wasn't just a romantic goal, it was an economic necessity. It was survival. And any kind of scandal, even a small one, could slam that one and only door to a secure future shut forever.
We all love the happy ending, right? But it was hanging by a thread. So let's play a little game of what if. What if a couple of key moments had gone the other way? What would that have looked like?
So what if Elizabeth had just doubled down on her prejudice? What if she'd rejected Darcy for good and never looked back? Well, the future would have been seriously bleak. Without Darcy in the picture, his best friend Bingley probably never comes back for Jane. So now your two oldest, most eligible daughters are spinsters. And when Mr. Bennet dies, the whole family gets booted from their home. They'd have to live on handouts from relatives, in what they called genteel poverty, which is just a nice way of saying poor but with good manners. Not a great future. Okay, what about the other big one? What if Darcy had just washed his hands of the whole Lydia situation and let that scandal explode? Oh, it would have been a total catastrophe. The book calls it deepest disgrace, and that's not an exaggeration. The whole family would be socially canceled. Lydia's mistake would have poisoned the well for every single one of her sisters. No respectable man would go near them. That one narrow path to security, completely gone. For all of them. And that's exactly why the happy ending in this book feels so earned. It's not just a romance novel fantasy, it's a victory. It's about two people overcoming their own baggage, for sure, but it's also about them winning against a social system designed to crush them, a world where one wrong move could literally destroy your life. Which, brings it all back to us. This story is such a powerful reminder of how easily a bad first impression or a snap judgment can send us down the completely wrong path. And it really makes you think, right? In our world of social media feeds and instant hot takes, how much are our own pride and our own prejudices shaping the story of our lives today?